well. So let's begin tonight's session. My name is Paul Lupex from the training team. They're based usually at Labour Party head office, coming to you tonight from Margate. Tonight's session is about the importance of early voting. We've been joined by, it's been fantastic to be joined by our Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, for this session. Angela, since she's been Deputy Leader, has been a fantastic advocate for training across the Labour Party, and I'm so pleased she's joining us tonight, and she's joined us for other sessions last year about being a councillor as well, and I'll hopefully join us for many more in the future as well. So a big warm welcome to Angela as well. Just a few housekeeping things for tonight's session. It will be recorded and it will be available for you to watch again, and also download a copy of the slides. We also have two of my colleagues, Olivia and Gail, who will be monitoring the chat tonight as well. You are able to chat with each other, so do say hello and be kind and be gentle and share ideas and best practice with each other using that as well. Please also use the Q&A function to ask us questions that we will do our best to answer during this session as well. We have got an hour, we've got a lot to pack in, but I'm sure we'll cover as much as we can during that session as well. So let's have a little look at what we're going to be covering in tonight's session. We are going to look at early votes, or postal votes as we call them, and why they are so important in these elections in 2021. And also, not just for your own safety, but also why they're important for not just these elections, but going forward for elections next year, and also whenever a general election might be as well. This session tonight covers quite a lot of the grounds out of your, maybe a role holder, CLP secretary. What you can do as a CLP to encourage as many people as possible to sign up to vote, but also you might be a candidate or a councillor, what actions that you can take in your community to make sure that as many people as possible, many people Labour supporters as possible, have signed up to a postal vote ahead of those all-important elections coming up in May. So this is what we're covering, why early voting matters. We've got a little bit of polling as well, to find out a little bit about you, just for a little bit of fun. We're going to talk about some of the campaign phases that my colleague Joanne McIntyre, who's also on the session tonight, is going to cover. A little bit about where we are, a bit more about those elections, a bit more about early votes, targeting, the role of a candidate, some next steps, and also getting in touch with us and some of the links that we're going to that we sort of highlight tonight as well. So I'm going to say it again. If you have just joined us a little bit late, don't worry about it. The session has been recorded, and also the slides will be available as well. So it is, to set us off for tonight, I want to sort of introduce our Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, who's going to sort of talk about why these elections matter and also why early voting matters as well. So just over to you now, Angela.
Thanks, Paul, and welcome to so many of you. We've got over 90 participants now on this call, which is fantastic. And it is really crucial that we get this voting safely, early voting underway. And this campaign is key, really, a really key part of our arsenal going forward for these elections. It's like no other election before, quite frankly. No one expected us to be in the circumstances we are now, and I know that all of us in our community have had difficulties to overcome, and we're still going ahead as if those votes will count in May, and that's what's going to happen. There's no indication at the moment, apart from hearsay, that that wouldn't be the case. So we've got to get campaigning and got to get these votes in. And just if you looked over the pond at what happened in the US, and the Democrats won the presidential election partly because they had an early vote campaign as well. So we know from experience abroad as well as experience here, because in the 2012 London mayoral election, we won on the box vote, but we lost on postal votes, and Boris Johnson became the mayor. So we can't have that again. So we know that it's going to be an election like no other. And it's actually one of the biggest elections we've had outside of a general election as well, because we've got the mayoral, the local councils, we've got the Scotland, we've got Wales, We've got police and crime commissioners. There's a whole load of elections happening. So what we're really concerned with doing is making sure that we get as many people on this vote early postal vote campaign, and we know it works. That's why we're doing it, and it's really, really good way of connecting with your family and friends, giving them a call, seeing how they want to do it. So I absolutely urge you to get involved in this campaign and for us to get that up and running. A lot of work's gone into this. Our staff have been absolutely amazing. If anything, do it for the staff, because they've all been going through the struggles that everyone else has, and they've still been working on our behalf, and they've put a tremendous amount of effort into this because we know it works. So I'm really hoping you'll be able to help. That's why you've come on the call tonight, and if we can all try and at least pledge to get 5 people who we know onto a postal vote after this evening, then we're already making a big effort on doing what we need to do to win in those locals and in those elections in May. So thanks, Paul. Thanks to everyone and for all that you do. It's not been an easy time, as I said. I know you've all been through the mill and back. I know everyone's concerned about what's been happening. I'm really pleased we've got the vaccine now, and that seems to be rolling out, and it's what we needed, quite frankly. And our key workers and our NHS are doing such a good job, but let's do our job for them and make sure that we give Boris Johnson a message in May, and that we get those votes, and then we get those postal votes, early votes sorted, and this campaign flies. Because, you know, if you look at what Keir's done over the last few months, as well as our new leader, he's been working day and night to show that leadership and to take us forward. And I think if we all work together, then we can smash it in May, and we can really give hope to the nation that things can be different. Thanks, Paul.
Muted. Thanks, Angela, and you'll be hearing a lot more from Angela during tonight's session as well. So we'll be coming back to Angela at various points during the session. But Angela, at any point, as you know, if you want to just, if there's something that you want to just share with us on any one of the slides, please just let us know, and we'll bring you in there on that as well. Okay.
Lovely. Thanks.
Sorry, I'm just trying to move my. So this is our little bit of interactivity at the beginning. We've started to do this a little bit of a poll, and we want to find out a little bit about you. So I'm going to open up our poll here and tell us if you have any one of these roles within the party. It should just be there. It's anonymous. We just want to find out whether we've got chairs, secretaries, campaign coordinators, other role holders, councillors, candidates, or if you remember, everyone is welcome on tonight's session. So we just want to sort of find out a little bit more about our audience as well. So just a little bit about you. There's nearly 75% of you have voted. We're getting that up to 80% as well. So it's great to hear to do that. So we're just trying to introduce these in a few of our webinars as now, just as a little bit of fun and to find out a bit about you. So just to share with everyone, 12% of the people on tonight are chairs, 18% are secretaries, 24% are campaign coordinators. That's brilliant. 30% are other role holders. 23% are councillors. 44% are candidates. So welcome as well. Another 41% are also members. So obviously people can have, we know that happens in the Labour Party, people can have a couple of roles as well. Sometimes you're a councillor as well as a secretary or chair or campaign coordinator. So thanks a lot for that. I'll just close that down as well. There's another one coming at the end as well. So just moving that on to the next bit. So thank you for doing that. Ooh. Sorry, my screen seems to just be frozen. So now I'm just going to hand over to my colleague, Joanne McIntyre, who's going to talk us through some of the campaign phases that we've had so far, and also what stage we are at now with the campaign. So Jo, just over to you for this bit, okay?
Great, thanks, Paul. So I work in the elections team. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a good evening. So a little bit of what we wanted to do was come up with these campaign phases. Hopefully, if you have been on these webinars before, you're familiar with the campaign phases and what we're kind of planning up to. So the first phase was from the postponement of the May elections until June of last year, was sort of the COVID response and using that time to sort of campaign plan going forward. And phase 2, we did sort of a listening campaign. We did lots of surveys, lots of things around how to hold online surveys and how to do response mechanisms. And now we're in sort of phase 3, which we're calling target voter engagement and early voter sign up. So this is early voter sign up is a huge part of our campaign, not just from now right until you can no longer sign up for an early vote. So it is a really important part of our campaign. And then sort of phase 4 and 5 focus on sort of GOTV and GOTEV and getting out the early vote. So that's kind of our campaign phases and our sort of campaign plan of how this all fits in terms of the wider campaign and the wider plan. I won't do my next slide because I know that. So where are we now in terms of the elections? So we think we all are pretty familiar with the elections that we've got coming up. We've got elections of all sort of varieties all over the country. The kind of brightly coloured map shows the huge sort of variety in elections that we've got. Next year in May 2021, we will elect approximately 5,000 councillors, which is 30% of the total, 40 police and crime commissioners in England and Wales, the Scottish Parliament, the Welsh Parliament, 7 metro mayors, the Mayor of London and London Assembly, and 5 local authority mayors. So that's a huge amount of elections happening on the same day, and a lot of different electoral systems happening in the same areas on the same day. So there's a lot going on all across the country to be involved in, and there's definitely something happening locally where you are. But it is a really unprecedented amount of elections happening on the same day. It's really worth just sort of pointing that out. But normally this is 2 elections that normally be a year apart that are being held on the same day. A little sort of refresher of the local elections timeline. This just sort of gives you a timeline of what's happening when. So the last date of the publication of the notice of election, so basically the last date when the sort of notice of the election is actually being held can be put out by local authorities, is the 29th of March. And the short campaign expenses start on the 30th of March. That just means anything we spend after that point needs to be accounted for by your agent. If you don't know who your agent is, it's probably worth getting in touch with your candidate. They should know who their agent is. And the deadline to submit nomination papers is the 8th of April. Hopefully everyone will submit, anyone who's a candidate will be submitting their nomination papers well in advance of that. And then the last time, important for this session, the deadline to apply for a postal ballot is the 21st of April 2021 at 5 o'clock. So that's really important for this session, that people can bear that in mind. They're running this campaign from now right up until Wednesday, the 21st of April, to sign up as many people for early votes as possible. And then polling day, the other important one, is Thursday the 6th of May. So why are we calling them early votes and not postal votes? It's just, in short, it's just to give them a little bit of a rebrand and a rethink and get people to kind of rethink about what they're signing up for. So they are the most important thing we can do to win this election. People who have an early vote are far more likely to vote. The reason that we called them early votes instead of postal votes is we've done a little bit of research on this, and the language around being able to vote earlier than normal, being able to vote at home, is really resonating with people and it's really working. So that's why we kind of slightly renamed them, and also research from other elections, including the American election, shows that sort of early voting is something that is actually resonating with people in a way that it hasn't before. But it is a really important thing that we can do to win this election. We know from research that people who vote via post are far more likely to vote than people who vote in person. And a little bit of research to kind of back that up. The Scottish Electoral Commission have done some polling recently. I think it was towards the end of last year. And they found that half of voters surveyed would apply for a postal vote if they were encouraged to do so. So someone that they knew encouraged them to sort of sign up for a postal ballot, they would happily do so, and they would be interested in doing so. And a fifth of those electors would prefer to vote by post if the election took place now. Postal voters, as we will say in this presentation many times, and we've already said already, are far more likely to vote than people who vote in polling stations. So in 2017, the general election turnout amongst postal voters was 85% versus 65.9% for box electors. So that just really shows you the big sort of disparity in turnout, even in a general election where turnout is typically much, much higher. As Angela mentioned earlier, the London mayor elections have really shown this up and shown the huge difference between postal and box turnouts. But signing them up for an early vote doesn't just help us in these elections in May, it helps us in next year's elections, the year after that, and in 2024 and beyond. So it does really help us, not just this year, but win our elections in the future as well. send this back over to Paul, I think.
Thanks a lot, Joe, as well. So now we're going to look at a little bit more about sort of the nuts and bolts of how we can do it, how we can get more people signed up to a postal vote. So the big ask is to sign up as a starting point all of our Labour members, and then also asking them to have a look around them, you know, their family, their friends, their neighbours, people who they may know, those people who they have a relationship with them, and ask them to vote as well, to sign up to have an early vote as well. This is our starting point. You know, we need to make sure that our members do, but also reach out into those communities who we know who are Labour supporters, and get them to sign up as well. We also we have a suite of digital assets that you can share organically with people as well. So have a look out for them. There's the big link at the bottom of the screen there as well. So you'll find out a lot of these resources are there, those digital resources as well. We're also asking people to work with the trade unions and encourage them and their members to sign up to postal votes, but also working with our sister party, the Co-op Party, as well, is really important to make sure that, you know, they can reach out into other places and encourage people to sign up as well. And I think, Angela, I wanted to sort of bring in you on this one a little bit, sort of like the importance of working with trade unions on this from your experience, and getting them, you know, they're some of the key workers that we've talked about who are union members who actually might be too busy on polling day as well. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I mean, the unions are really up for this and engaging with it, and it's a way of reaching out to the rest of the movement. And you know, it is right, because a lot of the unions have reach that we don't have reach as well. So it's a way of connecting again and connecting to those memberships. So I would encourage you to reach out to the officers within the CLP who do have union links, and see if they're willing to do sort of a campaign with you, whether that's a phone bank or whether that's, you know, working within their own networks. And a lot of places have WhatsApp networks as well. You could do that with your community groups as well, to be honest. You know, a lot of us are in, like, I don't know about you, but our neighbours all set up a little WhatsApp for the street and things like that. So there's loads of different avenues of sort of getting in there. But I suppose the most important thing is as Joe was saying earlier, it's those connections of asking someone. And if it's somebody who you know, or someone who you sort of trust, or who's around you day to day, actually you're more inclined to do it, and you're more inclined to think, oh, I never really thought of that. And you know, I was doing this with my sister the other day, and that's my sister, and she was like, oh, I didn't realise. And I was like, yeah, just do it. And she did it then. So it does actually work if you do it. I've done it myself, so it is good to do that. And like I say, the unions, they have their networks as well, and it's a really nice way of sort of making those connections with your friends, family, with people, your colleagues, and people who may be around, and like I say, the trade union movement as well, because a lot of the time, to be honest, we're either in conversation about a dispute, or it's when we want something, whereas this is actually quite a nice thing we can all do together. So I think it's a really good way of sort of, you know, building those relationships locally as well, especially if you're a local councillor and things like that. It's a nice way of getting in there and getting to know your local, who your local officers are and your local workplaces.
Yeah, I think it's funny, if I was trying to persuade my parents, my mum and dad, to sign up for postal vote, and they're some of those people who still, oh, we like to go to the polling station, and it's like trying to sort of change their mindset and say, look, this is about keeping you safe, it's about keeping other people safe, and I know what you like. I know that you like to do it, but it just makes sure you never know what's going to happen on May the 6th as well, because they would rely on my sister to give them a lift to the polling station, and she may not be able to do it as well. So it's about thinking ahead and organising your life as well, isn't it, a little bit? So just, yeah, I think there's a...
It is, and if your mindset has always been to go in, and I was the same, because I like that physical sort of presence of going in. If your mindset is like that, it's hard to change. It sort of feels a bit... and I was like that myself, but I just think, you know, if somebody who you know asks you, or someone close to you, you're more likely to do it. Whereas if it's somebody who you don't, then you'll probably just think, I'll do that, I'll think about that another time, because it's not that important. So I do think it's like really important just to ask the question.
Yeah, and I think that just comes back to one of the questions I think I saw that was saying, should we wait until nearer the time to try and like highlight this for people? And it's like, no, we need to try and do it now, because we don't just want to get sort of a few thousand. We want to get sort of millions of potential Labour voters signed up. So there's a lot of work to be done as well. So don't wait until whenever the deadline was in sort of March or April time. Let's start and do this now.
Yeah, and we don't know. I mean, I know someone put in the chat about trying to get an all postal ballot, you know, and the party's pushed for ways to which this government can make sure that the election goes ahead. You know, they could do it over a couple of days, or they could do an all postal ballot. But the crucial thing for us is that we can't rely on that. And I think, you know, what we saw this in the US, because the US have just had their elections, and I mentioned it before. And, you know, the Biden campaign literally had the early vote campaign like we're doing, and it really paid off for them. And it's so crucial that we learn from, you know, internationally where others have done it. Australia had a by-election during the COVID crisis, and again they had a vote campaign like this one. So we know it absolutely works, and it's crucial for us to do it, and we just can't rely on that the government might do the right thing or might not. So I think it's really important for us to do that.
Thank you, Angela. Thanks on that. I'm just going to move us forward a little bit now to the. So we're going to sort of talk about some of the resources that we have got available. That we have got a national scheme of buying into direct mail for target pool of voters. That will include a postal vote form and a return envelope. Also, there's a template on Connects that allows you to localise the messaging as well. So there's a link there as well. There's a generic leaflet available without an address for hand delivery to target property lists as well. But we're also aware of that some councils are writing to all box electors to offer a postal vote as well. So there is things that happen in different things on the ground as well that I just wanted to sort of flag up with people as well. There is also resources there that we have talked about, these digital resources that we can sort of target at Labour or likely Labour supporters with a low, medium propensity to vote. And when we talk about that medium, low propensity to vote, it's basically people who are general election voters, but actually for one reason or another, don't vote at local elections. And those are the people that we really want to try and make sure that they're the ones on a postal vote as well. But also we've tested some messages as well. And I think as Joe mentioned, the early vote seems to cut through with voters, but also voting safely and voting from home works as well. So that's why you can see some of those digital images that we've got there on the right hand side of the screen, sort of work from home, work out from home. Well, some of us do, not as much. Teach from home and also vote from home as well. So these are some of those key messages that you can use in your local communications as well. We are asking people to direct people to our postalvote.labour.org.uk where they can actually fill out, get a postal vote form that they will then have to print off and then send it back to the council as well. So there's lots of other, on the resources page as well, there's lots more the advice and other training as well. But also we are putting together, for those people who do use Reach, which is our sort of digital advertising platform on Facebook, we are going to have a session coming up of how you can generate your local assets and then actually place them for local advertising as well. So please do look out for that as well. I think there's been some chat about this already, about using Dialogue as well. And if you haven't used it, Dialogue is Labour's online phone banking tool, which enables us to sort of talk to voters from the comfort and safety of your own home as well. It doesn't cost you anything. All you need is a laptop and a tablet as well. And so one of the things that is coming up, we're just sort of getting this together, that when we ring people on Dialogue, and they say that they're a Labour supporter to us, what we then can do is we're asking them, would you like to register by post? What we can then do is send them out a pre-filled form on an email, or we can send them a form in the post, or just say no thanks as well. So that is obviously a cost to the party as well. So that's a huge amount. But obviously what we need to try and do is identify those supporters on Dialogue as well. So we want to make sure that when you are having those conversations, that we're identifying that they're Labour, they haven't got a postal vote, because sometimes people might forget, they might have signed up for one last year, but we need to try and check that they've got a postal vote as well, and those forms will be emailed or posted to them as well. So, Angela, did you want to say anything about that? What's happening in your local area about your experience of when you're campaigning, whether you've spoken to people or leaflets or direct mail about, how people are signing up as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on Dialogue a few times, and at times it can feel a bit, it's weird when I ring someone on Dialogue, it takes me 10 minutes to get off. And I think the first question at the moment is, how well do you think the government's doing? And they think that's a bit weird coming from me. So if I stick to the script, everyone's like, why are you asking me about this government? So it can be a bit strange. But actually, I think, like I said before, one of the best ways of doing it is by word of mouth. So you asking someone and them asking somebody else. That's why I said at the beginning, if we could all target 5 people we know and get them onto a postal vote, and then if they could get another 5, if we sort of did it like that, then it'd easily, get through to people in that way. But I also think the conversations, using the phone banking system, because that's the only way we can have conversations at the moment, and hopefully all the CLPs that are represented on tonight's call are doing regular phone banking. I know there's a Tameside one on there, and we've been phone banking in Tameside, so hopefully everyone's doing that. And it's really good to have that conversation with people, and especially now because it's the jabs, everyone's talking about the vaccinations at the moment as well, so it's a really good way of sort of getting in there and saying, do you want to sign up for an early vote, make sure you have your say, sort of thing.
Brilliant. And I think I just wanted to highlight, I think someone's just highlighted, might be in the chat, that issue comparing us to America with regards to trust in our postal vote system, and just actually get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have heard that people have said about at times about the security of voting and things like that. But I think, in the UK, there has been some issues in the past where people, if postal voting has had a bad name or whatever. But I actually think most people now, and one of the reasons why we're brandishing it in the way of an early voting system as well is that people think it's if you're infirm that you can't get to a polling station, so that you get a postal vote if you can't do that, whereas actually this is about an early voting system, so it means that your vote is absolutely secure and valid and is taken. So we can reassure people on that. And there was a recent polling information done into electoral focus. If you remember, the Conservatives had tried to make a suggestion that this was a big thing, and there was an investigation into it, and I think they found that it was 0.00001% of votes that were invalid, and it wasn't that there was a vote of fraud, but it was to do with the signature. So it was like a really tiny, minuscule amount of all of the votes that weren't valid. So it's actually more safer to do it postal than it would be to otherwise go to the box, for all the reasons you said, Paul, because you could end up not getting a lift or life gets in the way. But actually, it's a lot safer and a lot more secure to do it by post as well.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm just going to move on. I think George, back over to you now, Joe, for looking at targeting as well.
Yeah, I'm just going to run through a little bit about who we're sending these to and who we're going to ask you to speak to in terms of voters. So our target pool. So as we kind of all mentioned before, people are far more likely to vote in a general election than in local elections, like we have in May. So our target voters are sort of Labour or likely Labour supporters, on the basis of what they've told us already, what we know about them already, and what we call model data, such as voter segments. So what we've done is everyone's kind of got a sort of a score of how likely they are to vote, and that's based on things like our marked registers. So we can see not how they voted, but who's voted after every election, and we upload that information to Contact Creator. So we can work out roughly who's likely to vote and who's not likely to vote. So if you've got a lower median propensity to vote, that, as Paul was saying earlier, that'll generally sort of mean you only vote in general elections and not local elections. And these are the people we really want to target for postal votes or early votes. But as Angela said a second ago, it's really important to rethink who the target audience is. So if you look at the sort of diagram here, the biggest gaps in between local elections and general elections are in sort of younger voters, like younger families in particular, who are less likely to vote in local, far less likely to vote in a local election than in a general election. So it's not just necessarily thinking about those who might struggle to get to a polling station. It's rethinking it for people who might be interested in an early vote for sort of the ease of it and the sort of the simplicity of not knowing what they're going to be doing in a couple of months' time and having having the security and the safety of voting from home. Are you on mute? Oh, there we go. So a little bit on the selections that we've got on Contact Creator. So we've got recommended early vote sign up. So they're just called on the quick page of Contact Creator. We've got a narrow, a medium, and a broad version, and they're just based on a simple percentage of people with early vote rankings across council areas. So the narrow one is the smallest one if you've got like a lower budget, and the broader one is obviously the widest if you've got a larger budget. So you can run these by your ward or your Westminster constituency. We are working on adding those for the Wales constituencies and the Scottish constituencies. We know the ones in Wales are almost exactly the same, but I know there's some slight differences. We'll check that they work. So if you've got any questions on those, do get in touch with us. So you can also use these to sort of input your own quantity into them as well. So if you've got a specific amount you want to spend, you can also do that. There's really detailed instructions just here in that link, which you can put into the chat or send around afterwards, which has got a document which tells you all about how we worked out these rankings and every possible thing that you could do with them. I won't go into them now because we could be here all night, but there's lots of different things you can do. So if you've got a specific budget or sort of a specific question, you can look there and find all the answers to what sort of things you want to do. So that's kind of a little bit on targeting and what we're up to with that. And this is just a screenshot of where you can find them on Contact Creator. So we've got a really simple, straightforward postal vote registration 2020 direct mail selection on Contact Creator, which is just a straightforward sort of who we think you want to send your postal votes to selection, and it's available on Contact Creator. So if you are a Contact Creator user, just have a look at that and see what you think. And that's where we'd recommend you start with using that one. I'll hand back over to Paul.
Brilliant. I wasn't rushing you there, Joe. Sorry, I was just moving the slides. I was trying to be.
No, it's fine. I could talk about Contact Creator forever, so I won't.
So I'm conscious of the time, and we're going to bring in Angela again, but I just want to talk about some of those next steps and staying safe as well, because I know a couple of people have asked, saying, when can we deliver, when can we do this? But it's all within the hands of the government. So that's the point, and I'm going to show you the link of where you can find the latest guidelines as well. So we've talked about the campaign pack that you can download, and hopefully someone would have put that in the link there that you can have a look at. I know that Joe and other people have had training sessions, and Angela's spoken to our MPs. We're doing some sessions for councillors coming up about rolling this out as a huge programme to everyone. There's going to be some more sort of copy ready for early vote letters. There's going to be some dialogue sign-ups as well that we've mentioned that are going to come on stream. There's the link there. This is huge. It's a members campaign, but we can't do everything as a national party on this. Some of this is down to you and what you can do. And I think, as Angela said, like through your own networks, and there's a lot of people here who are councillors already, and you've got those great grassroots connections that I used to have when I was a councillor as well. So make use of those and making sure that they're asking other people that they know to sign up for postal vote as well. But as all of this, if you need any help or if you need any support, as a training team, we are here to help you. Email us at training@labour.org.uk. And if there's any questions here that we don't get a chance to answer, please pop them in there and we'll do our best to get back to you over the next couple of days as well.
Just to say as well, I see that some in the chat have been talking about some of the other political parties have been out, done leafleting at the moment. I mean, the decision was taken by ourselves, and I think other parties made the same decision, that it wasn't a good thing to go out leafleting at this moment in time during this lockdown. And if you look at the pressure on the NHS and the number of deaths as well, I think to loosely connect it with being information. I mean, the Lib Dems, anyone who thinks a leaflet from the Lib Dems has information in it is, crackers, but that's what they've defended, is that they're giving vital information. And it's absolutely bending the rules, basically. The rules have been put in place, which is in effect is stay at home, save lives. That's what the scientists have been trying to say, and the government have messed that message up quite considerably. So we took the decision during lockdown as a party that we wouldn't, and we've expanded Dialogue, which is our online phone banking system, so we can connect with our voters, and I've been doing that regular weekly, and actually it's really nice. People are really happy to hear from us, and they feel better. I actually think it'll be counterproductive for those parties during this lockdown, during this circumstance we're in, for them to do that work. And as soon as we're able to, as soon as the restrictions are eased, then we'll go back and we'll give guidance on what CLPs can do, and we'll do it in a safe and secure way that people have confidence in. And you know, we do direct mails through using the postal service. Currently we've done some of that already, but we're just not leafleting at the moment because of the national lockdown. And I think that was the right decision for the party to take, and I think other parties that have not done that, I don't think the public will see or recognise. Some areas have been in lockdown for a long time, they haven't been able to see the relatives. I don't think they'll take too kindly to political material coming through at this moment in time. Of course, you know, people can send out information as they do. Our local councillors are on the ground already, often leading the way. So actually our talk is much, you know, the work that we're doing on the ground speaks volumes, and that's the most important thing at the moment, is we're there for people on the ground.
Thank you, Angela. Yeah, that's a really important point that you've made there. And I just want to now just move on to some of our, we're not going to call them targets as such, but these are requests that we think that you could sort of think about, you know. I don't know about you, but I quite like a little bit of competition or something to aim for. And what we're suggesting is a CLP that actually you should look to try and increase your percentage of Labour promise on the postal vote, as well as the percentage who are Labour or likely to vote Labour, who are Labour or likely to be Labour. And one of the things that we've sort of come up with is a figure, and you know, you can set your own target, what's manageable towards you, but if you could increase the amount of your Labour promise that are on a postal vote by 10%. So example, if you've got 500 Labour promises, you want to basically increase that by 50 who are on a postal vote as well. So, you know, think about having a target that's realistic, achievable, but also a little bit stretching in your local area as well, that you think would help focus the mind, focus activity as well, what, you know, obviously within all those guidelines as well. Also, make sure that everyone is aware of that campaign pages that I've talked about. And also on that page is a campaigner's code of conduct when dealing with postal votes. And it's really important that every member who might be asking someone for a postal vote or applying for a postal vote or encouraging other people to apply for a postal vote is aware of that code of conduct. That's not just for now when applying for one, but also when those postal ballot papers drop as well, which they will do over April time as well. So there are rules and regulations of what we can and can't do when dealing with them. So make sure that all of our members are briefed on that as well. Obviously, we're also asking people for you to sort of call your members, target Labour voters using Dialogue, and sign them up to a postal vote as well. Also, just think about whatever you might be doing, you know, having Zoom calls or Zoom quizzes or bake-alongs with family or friends or anything else like that. Make sure that, you know, I might not do it at the end of the night if everyone's, you know, but just try and remind people that, oh, I was on a call with Angela Rayner this week and she was talking about signing up for an early vote. Is everyone else going to do this as well? So just think about how you can bring that into other interactions that you're having with people who you know are Labour supporters as well. And so there's this target then of at least every one of us as members trying to get 5 family or friends signed up to a postal vote as well. And also as a CLP, as I mentioned there, start and come together now and have a plan and have a budget. If you are going to spend some money on reach and some local digital advertising as well. So anticipating that we had a few councillors on tonight as well, or council candidates, we've come up with 6 things that we would like you to do as well. So see what you think, and if you have got any other suggestions, pop them in the chat as well. But we don't know what the 6th of May is going to look like. We don't even, I think as Angela said, we don't even know if it's going to be on the 6th of May, but we've got to work towards that day. So whatever you might be doing, if you can, make sure that you booked that day. It's free as well. If you can do, make sure you book the whole week off. You never know. I know that's difficult, and I know that's a big ask, but you know, it's about planning ahead and see whether you can make some time as well. Make sure that you're signed up to a postal vote yourself. You know, I think as someone said in the chat there, you can take a picture and tweet about you with your postal vote filled out, go into the post box. It's true. So you've got that option as well to do that. If you're a candidate, you know, what are you going to do to get your family and friends and other people who you know sign up to postal vote? Is a target of 50? I don't know if that's too much or not enough. Do you know, have a think about that. Set yourself a personal target of how many people that you contacted that are signed up to a postal vote. If you're a councillor or a candidate, let us know what your council is doing, encouraging people to sign up for postal votes. That's good information to have as well, but also if they've got any plans, or could you do anything to encourage them to have a plan to encourage people to sign up. I'm talking about reach again. You know, if your CLP has not got someone who puts on reach adverts onto Facebook, you know, ask them to come along to the training, ask them to get in touch with your regional office, provide that support that we can get that advertising there as well. And as I say, look, we don't have all the ideas here. You know, we just, you know, we want to share your good ideas, your best practice, and what's worked on the ground for you as well. And so send them to us, and we'll actually making sure that we can distribute them and let other people know about them as well. Angela, did you have any thoughts about what we should be asking for our council candidates to do as well? On top of that, or is there, I think I've covered everything.
I think you've done a really good job, Paul. But I saw that in the chat that Bradford have asked, you know, Bradford Council have asked and sent out about people being able to use the service of a postal vote, and of course that is brilliant, and it's great that they've done that. And actually it's really good information sharing on, as long as it's not politically based, but information sharing that you do have an option of applying for it is a really good way of getting into that as well through their mechanisms. But yeah, I think you've covered just about everything. And you know, the councillors, that's what I was saying before, and I don't know if I was very articulate or not, but our councillors are doing more than just the campaigning at the moment. They're actually rolling their sleeves up and helping the constituents in a way that they've never done before, in ways that we never expected to. And I just want to say thank you to them for that, and I'm sure that that will be rewarded in May for the work that people have done. You know, you've really stepped up at a time where people never expected to be in these circumstances. You know, the free school meals, the debacle of the government not providing food for our kids at a time of need, whereas we've seen our councillors step up, and that I don't think the electorate are going to forget that. So I think it's really important that we're able to go out and speak to them, and that those of us that aren't councillors on this call, we reward the councillors for that work by us going out and saying that, because they, you know, a lot of Labour people don't speak about how well they do. So I'm quite happy to say, you know, I'm proud of my local councillors who have gone out there and been part of their community. And I think it's a really good thing to do, is to share that information across our networks for them, because they have stepped up during a really difficult time.
No, thank you for that. And I've not, well, I live in Margate, I've not seen anything of my Tory councillors, I can tell you that. But there's a question coming there from Peter, and I thought it was quite an interesting one, so I thought we'd take this one live. Are you happy for us to work with other anti-Tory parties to encourage postal votes?
I mean, I'm happy to work with whoever we can to encourage postal voting. You know, it's important that we do that, but obviously we want to be we want as many votes as we can for Labour, and I think and we can't be unrealistic about that. You know, I've heard about these pacts before between different parties, but often what usually happens is that it splits the votes within our voting pool. Let's be frank, that's the elephant in the room. That's what happens in my local elections. If they go and vote, you know, if some of our voters vote Green, you know, or we do that with the Greens, then what we actually do is we end up letting a Tory in because our vote is split. And often when it comes about working together, it usually means they want us to move aside. and that's not really my idea of I think we should put our vision forward. But, you know, working with any groups on making sure that people can get postal votes and use their democratic right, because that's different. You know, it's like 50-50 women and things like that, women's representation. You know, I've spoke on those platforms, and it's about actually people using their democratic right, and I'm all for that. And I encourage that even in schools, because when I'm, as an MP, when I'm talking in schools, I generally tend to try dial down the politics a little bit, because, you know, when I'm trying to get 15-year-olds to see why it's important to be involved in politics, giving them the hard sell on Labour is probably not the best way of getting them dipping their toe in. So I generally tell them that actually you have no say on anything if you don't make your vote count. I mean, obviously I'm my party and I believe that our values are the ones that this government and, you know, this country needs. But, you know, I try and get people involved in the democratic process. So I think it's right that we try instinctively to do that, but be under no uncertain terms that other political parties generally tend to see us as opposition, even if they have some values that relate to ours.
I've had a quick look through the chat there, and a few people have put questions in the chat, which sometimes it's just a bit difficult to read. And if you have got questions, I'm just going to remind you to pop them in the Q&A bit and not put them in the chat. So just it's easier for us to answer some of them live or answer some of our colleagues as well. So we'll come back to that. Thank you for that, Angela. And I'm just... So, as people have we talked about as well, and obviously we've mentioned this earlier, there is guidance there that gets updated as things change. It is actually Joe's responsibility and work to update the guidance that's out there as it changes in England, Wales, and Scotland. And so, you know, there's decisions that have been on there, and that's our guidance of what we can do. That will get changed as soon as other things change. When this government keeps changing its mind or whatever they're doing under Boris Johnson, stuff like that. So, you know, we will update that. Obviously, we're working with Scottish and Welsh colleagues as well to make sure that's updated there as well. So please, you know, I think Angela's already, I'm not going to cover it again. Angela spoke about the Labour Party position of where we are at the moment and what we can do. And obviously the impact that has us, you know, I think you know, I thoroughly agree with her on that as well. So please make sure you have got that link as well, you know it. So I've also just got another quick poll that's going to come up, and before I open up the poll, I'm just going to have a quick look and see what other questions that might have come in. I've realised we've got 10 minutes left, so there's a quick couple of questions that might have come in. Okay. Okay, there's some of them are quite technical ones. I think I might gonna leave my colleagues to answer there, but yeah, I think I don't. There's one from Peter there. If we as a party send out a postal vote application, would it be legal to put a Labour stamp on them? Joe, do you understand? I found a misunderstanding.
So if you're sending out postal vote forms, you want people to send them back to the council, the sort of the easiest and most straightforward way is setting up a business return. So like the business return, the free post addresses. So I want to put in the chat that some councils have them already. So it's worth checking that if they're okay to send you some of their envelopes, if they're willing to do that. If they're not, you can set up a business return envelope. There's details of how to do that in the campaign pack, which is on the website, which I think we can put a link to in the chat as well. So if you want to set up a business return envelope, it's much cheaper than not put individual stamps on all the envelopes, and you only pay for what's returned. So it's a much more cheaper and much more effective way of sort of ensuring that people can return them.
But if we want to if they want to send them directly to the council, if the council's got that free post address already, then that expense can go on the council as well, rather than the Labour Party collecting them. Is that right?
So what some councils might do, like when I was an organizer in Wales, if you were doing like a really small like campaign award with sending out postal votes or doing them out here campaigning, our council were quite happy for us to use their free post, and they actually gave us like a bundle of their free post envelopes.
Yeah.
So we just had them when we were at campaigning and gave the postal vote form and the envelope to somebody that they could then send back themselves to the council, which was really, really helpful. I mean, it sort of depends whether they've got one or whether they've got the sort of the spare envelopes to spare. but it is really straightforward. So your own business return envelope. So you don't have to deal with them coming to you. They go straight to the council.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And I think there's just a question there from Dave regarding dialogue. Dialogue will be amended as we get nearer towards polling day as well. So there's that. And I think, Michelle, I think people don't think that you're a scammer when you're phoning people. I think from my experience of phoning, I many years ago used to work in telephone sales as well, and maybe that people trust the Geordie accent, I'm not too sure. But always at the beginning of that call of just being warm, welcome, saying your name, where you're from, and why you're calling, and just being out there. And that's, people, the vast majority of my experience as well is people do believe us. And sometimes if there's the missed number and they ring back, then that call will automatically, the number that they've got will be diverted to a Labour Party head office number. So that's the the best thing I can answer on that one as well. So I'm just going to open up the poll now and ask you what you're going to do next out of those 5 as well. So please, and I'm going to polling 2. What will you do next? So are you going to sign up for an early vote? Are you going to get your family and friends to sign up? Are you going to visit our resources page? Are you going to use dialogue to make some calls? Or are you going to sort of share or talk as a CLP exec and make a plan of what you're going to do next coming up? Oh, it's a bit like, I don't know, is it Eurovision or something, watching the votes come in? I quite like this. There we are. I think the vast majority of people, oh no, a few more have come in. We're over 85% of people have voted already. Oh no, 80% of people. I'm just going to share a few of these because obviously 50% of people, 49% have said they're going to sign up to a postal vote. I would like it to be a bit more than that. 53% of people have said that they're going to get family and friends to sign up to a postal vote. It's now gone up to 54. 72% of you are going to visit our resources page. 47% are going to use dialogue to make some calls. And 65% are going to share with your CLP exec and make a plan. So that's great. Thanks a lot for that. Really enjoyed that. But I'd like to see a few more of you individually. That's only half of you on this call are going to sign up to a postal vote. And hopefully it might be that the other half of you are already signed up for one and they don't need to do it. But after an hour of myself and Angela, we would have hoped it would have been a higher number than that. But it's a good number. 55% are going to get family and friends to do that as well. So quick last couple of other things. I am conscious of the time tonight as well. I just wanted to give an opportunity to Angela to highlight a couple of campaigns that the Labour Party is running with members at the moment. And also I think the first one in conjunction with the Daily Mirror, and I think you touched upon it earlier, Angela, about the Vaccinate Britain campaign. I just want to say a few quick words about that.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And do you know what? We've kept nearly everybody on the call and we've lost nobody. And in fact, the one person that had to leave early just said, I'm really sorry I have to leave. So I hope you've all found it incredibly useful, this call. And James, you're a legend as well. Love you to bits. Just so you all know, I'm reading everything that's in the chat and taking it all in as well. But thank you so much for tonight. We are doing campaigns and it's really important that we are seen as campaigning, even though we can't be obviously knocking on doors. Most of us are doing it anyway and we don't even know it's campaigning, quite frankly. How many of us have been helping out with the local food banks, volunteering, taking people to vaccinations or helping with whatever it is we do, we're doing it. So we are campaigning and thank you so much for all that you're doing. But the national campaign for Let's Vaccinate Britain, which was launched with the trade unions and with the Daily Mirror, we've had a really good uptake on that. And again, it's kind of because Boris Johnson, quite frankly, wants to wrap himself round with this vaccination programme as if he's delivered it after today is the highest death rate for a day since the COVID crisis. That's how terrible things are at the moment. And this government has the highest death toll and the economy is the worst of all of the, G7 economies. So we're in a bad place because of this government and they want to wrap themselves up in it. And actually what we're trying to do is say, what's really brilliant is at Oxford, British vaccine and all the other vaccines that have come together, and it's the scientists and research and innovation and the investment in that that's really done it, and our communities coming together. I mean, it really is a show of all of our communities and our key workers that have done this. So that campaign is really good. The details are up there so that people can get involved in that campaign. It's a really positive campaign about the spirit of community, the spirit of everyone coming together. So it's a really positive campaign, and I think we all need a bit of positivity at the moment with everything that everyone's gone through. So thank you so much for being on this call. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Joe and Gail and Olivia and everybody else who's made sure this call happened tonight. And keep yourselves safe. Hopefully by summertime we'll be in a better place than where we are now, despite this government.
Angela, you've been saying your goodbyes a bit too early. There's still a couple of more slides that I'm going to do as well. Sorry. We also just wanted you to highlight the, obviously from the debate last night about the universal credit, as well as another campaign that we've got online. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that.
You want me to talk again on UC? Yeah, I mean, yes. there is a huge, what we're doing as well is we're trying to make sure that the parliamentary stuff we're doing at the moment to highlight the government's failures about having a positive campaign as well that resonates, that CLPs can use. So we're kind of joining everything up. So you'll have seen the campaign on getting laptops. And by the way, I know loads of councillors on here have done a huge amount of work to get laptops, despite what the government's rollout programme has been. So again, that's another success of what happens and how it counts locally. And the free school meals, like I said, we had an opposition day debate on that, and you'd have seen the stuff on universal credit. So it's actually trying to push to make a real difference and get ahead of some of these things. And you know, even though we're not in government, we're really pushing to show that, you know, Labour in power in local government really makes a difference, and that being an effective opposition can also push the government, embarrass this government, even this government, to do the right thing when it comes to feeding children and looking after people who need it in society.
Brilliant. Thanks, Angela. I'm now just going to quickly go through the last few of our emails as well. Some of it is just a little bit of housekeeping that I mentioned at the beginning. Here's some of our links. If you want to, before I forget, there's some more upcoming training taking place. We've got a fantastic session tomorrow about campaigning as a candidate for first 10 candidates. We've got, and I've completely forgotten the name of the councillor who's joining us from Blackpool. It's Amy. And Amy, I've forgotten your surname just at this moment, but that's a really good session. Friday, everyone would have received an email about the Good Friday Agreement, the Path to Peace, that we're putting on as well. So there's lots of people signed up for that. Please do join us. Next week, we've got Steve Reid, Shadow Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, about being a councillor, some data protection for local councillors and candidates, and also about campaigning as a councillor on the 27th of January. So I've got quite a lot on over the next week as well. So hopefully you can join me for all of them, or some of them, whatever you can manage. But all of the sessions will be recorded. Tonight's session has been recorded as well. Hopefully, technology allowing, that they will be up by Thursday this week as well. So please look out for that as well. If you want to get in touch with us, that's us at the training team. Any issues regarding your membership, email them, and also campaign technology. If you want to say hello to us on Twitter as a training team, we're at Labour Training as well. So please do that. And finally, they're just some of the links that we've mentioned and also have been put in the chat tonight as well. Hopefully, we've done our best to answer all of your questions. I just want to say again a big thank you for Angela for joining us, for being such a big supporter of the training team as well and everything that we do. So thank you for Joe as well for joining us, and my colleague, and everyone else. So Angela, I'm now going to give you the last final words as well and say goodbye to people as well.
Remember everyone, 5 Alive, magic number. Get 5 people signed up to a postal vote, early vote, and that would be amazing. And it will be the first and the first of many things we can all do. And just again to reiterate, thank you so much for being part of the Labour family. I say my family was dysfunctional, my upbringing, but I found the Labour movement, and it's the only family that I've ever really known that has accepted me for who I am and has made me feel valued. And that's what you do every single day, whether you're a councillor, activist, or whatever else it is you're doing an amazing job, and you make people feel valued and worthwhile. So thank you so much for all you do in the community, and I hope to see you again very soon.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. Good night. Stay safe.